And well, you know, I started reading webtoons with the sound of your heart, things like that. But what is the actual inception of the webtoon industry? Because it seems to be quite new for us in Europe, but you might know more than I do.
Right. So, I mean, compared to video games and especially anime and video games, Webtoons is definitely like the new kid on the block. Really quickly, just a little bit about me. I used to work at a lot of different places, but like my most recent work history includes V Live, which was Neighbors and now is was bought out by Hive. So it's featuring a lot of BTS and a lot of their K-pop stars now. After that, I worked at Legend uh, primarily on the US market. After that, Top Tune, licensing production for Korea and the US market. And then Voicethrough for licensing, which is a subsidiary of Kakao. But it's funny that you bring up The Sound of Your Heart because The Sound of Your Heart was basically part of the first generation of webtoons that came out. I think it was published in like 2006, back when the term webtoon was probably just coming into common parlance in Korea. Hadn't made it overseas. In 2006, I was still in college. I had no idea what was going on. I was back in California studying chemistry while in Korea they were having this kind of storytelling artistic revolution where you have all these amateurs or these semi-professional amateur artists starting to create new stories, new content, and that's where you get Sound of Your Heart, which is the first picture. It's in Korean, it's called 마음의 소리, literally the sound of your heart. Next to that is 신과 함께. It's I believe in English it was translated to Walk with the Gods, and then 순정 manhwa, which is it never got exported to American shores, but they did make a live action movie of it called Hello Schoolgirl. But I mean, pre 2010, webtoons are they're hosted by search engines. I mean, we still have a few leftovers from that. We have Neighbor webtoons, we have Kakao webtoons, which formerly was Down webtoon, and it was just amateurs publishing on these platforms. It was all free. It was on a weekly basis, but sometimes people missed their deadlines, and there was no easy road to monetization until the 2010 webtoon market, which kind of leads us closer to, I mean, even the art style shifts. You can see it going from this really, really stylized, kind of cartoony, four cut, funny webtoons to something more story driven. So you have Cheese in the Trap, At the End of the Road, Miseng, the first one and the last one made it into huge K dramas. Like they were really really popular, and Cheese and the Trap in particular was one of the first wave of webtoons convert adapted for K dramas that made it big abroad. Like on Reddit, people were talking about Cheese and the Trap. And then when the K drama came out, it was already publishing in English on Webtoon, so it was kind of a feedback loop. And I think whereas in video games, like Helena was saying, there's like this plan for IP development. In webtoons there was no plan. The idea was we make funny stories, people will like them, and hopefully a lot of Korean people read it. And then when it started getting exported to the foreign markets in the 2010s, then we start going, oh hey, what do you know, other people in other countries, once we translate it into other languages, that they really like this. I think Cheese in the Trap and Misang were like some of the first webtoons where we were like, oh hey, this isn't just a Korean thing, like other people will like this as well. It's also when the market expands, you get new webtoon platforms. You see Legend, you see Riddy, you see Peanuttoon. Unfortunately, Peanuttoon is closed, but you see a lot more platforms starting to explode onto the scene in Korea. You also get webtoon studios, whereas before it was just individual creators working on stuff. And then the most important things are you get microtransactions. You start actually seeing we're gonna start charging for episodes now. We're gonna start asking people to pay. People will pay. People do pay, and the creators and the studios start to make money. And this starts to become an industry at this point. Before it was more like, to a certain degree, artists posting on Instagram and kind of building towards something. But in the 2010s, especially in the later 2010s, you start seeing that this is actually going to be a market in the hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's actually going to work. Not to mention, you start seeing expansion to English and Japanese markets, which leads us to the current-ish era. Oops, I think you're on a Zoom page.
Oh, wait, I don't know why it's not. What? I lost my page.
Oh, I think it's the previous tab.
So yeah, just give me 1 second. I think
Zoom is
actually
just
my
trying to get you to pay.
the thing is my page just went off. So wait, I don't know why it closed. So let me restart sharing it. It just closed by itself. This is the beauty of life. Let me try to reshare it again, but I don't know why.
Oh no, it's
We're
up. It's
back.
working.
Oh,
Oh,
Oh, it was.
sorry again. I'm gonna get through it. Sorry, guys. There we go. So let's
absolutely
just move
fine.
on to.
The next slide, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that brings us to now, and the biggest thing that kind of happened for the industry on the Webtoon side would definitely be COVID-19. Everyone was stuck indoors, and working on the platform side then in Korea, I can tell you that the numbers ballooned. Like we went from making maybe 1 million a month, maybe 800,000 a month in revenue, to platforms measuring in the millions to 2 million to 3 million a month for on the medium side. On the bigger side, the numbers went much further than that. So the and in Korea, it had always been like a 100 million, 200 million, $300 million industry for leading into end of the 2010s, but in the US market, in the English speaking market, in the Japanese speaking market, in the European speaking market, we start to see numbers start to match up with the Korean market. And so you have this massive expansion where, French platforms appear, Southeast Asian platforms appear, Spanish platforms appear. And then literally up until this year when we started seeing a massive shrink where maybe the strategies weren't that sound, maybe we were a little bit hasty in expanding to these markets. So I think earlier this year, at my last tally, there were like 8 platforms that had shut down. Some of them overseas, some of them in Korea. I mean, best case scenario, the Korean platform stayed alive while the foreign platform shut down. Worst case scenario, the Korean platform shut down along with everything else because they just spread themselves way too thin. So the studio system expands because platforms, publishers realize it's a lot easier to deal with a system, studio that handles maybe about 50 creators instead of dealing with 50 individual creators. Production costs, as you can see from the art quality of the 3 titles that are pictured, production costs have ballooned. It used to be maybe 1 million won, which is about $1,000, to about $2,000 an episode on your average webtoon. I know I can't say the exact numbers, but I know for a fact for some of the webtoons that are like high level productions, you're looking at in the tens of thousands of dollars per episode for a production, which means you're producing 4.5 episodes a month. So you're spending about $50,000 a month on a webtoon, and just the art. And also because, France and a lot of the European countries, oops, I'm just gonna keep on going. A lot of European countries, we start seeing a shrink. What you're now seeing is a greater emphasis and a greater focus on the English and Japanese markets. Like if you look at you don't want to give that away on the internet. Hana,
Do I want
Oh,
to try to pull up the deck again?
yeah,
okay. Wait a
you
second.
don't want to share this information.
It's
I
a
don't.
range. It's a range.
Oh, wait,
It's a range. It's a range. No specifics. But
wait.
because you start seeing a lot of the foreign markets failing, they are starting to focus a lot more on the Japanese and English markets because it is very much what works, what's profitable, and what is actually feasible. Now, the current play, because of all the unfortunate mistakes of the past half decade or so, we are starting to see that there's a lot more licensing happening. They're starting to see film adaptations. Like this year, we saw Omniscient Reader come out, which is a very big property here in Korea. Unfortunately, the movie wasn't great. Speaking as a fan, I did not think that it was the best use of that IP. But they did also release another webtoon that I didn't picture here, but it's called My Daughter is a Zombie, which did amazingly well in Korea. It broke records for the year at a time when the film industry in Korea is at a massive slump. We're also starting to see anime adaptations. Let's Play is really notable. It's actually not a Korean webtoon. It's a foreign webtoon. It's an American webtoon. And I think they're working on multiple different adaptations, licenses of Let's Play, but the anime just got announced recently, and that's got a massive drive behind it. You're also starting to see J-drama adaptations of K-drama adaptations of Korean webtoons. So it's really starting to now not just be a Korean thing. It's starting to become things in other parts of Asia, video games, K-dramas, and not to mention now that K-dramas are really starting to come on board, you're starting to see K-drama studios start to look at that licensing play here. Because one thing that I will say is that if you follow me on LinkedIn, I talk about this a fair amount. The Korean webtoon industry is not great at licensing. We're not very good at. There are many things that we are good at. Licensing and making use of those licenses is not really one of them. Yeah. So moving forward. Yeah, I will say one thing. Yeah, merch is a big thing. Thank you, Helena. But looking forward, there's really 4 things I think are going to be really, really important to the industry. One of them is overseas hitters. I put Lore Olympus here because Lore Olympus was a massive hit in English-speaking markets. But we haven't had really a Lore Olympus since. It's been a little bit watered down. We haven't seen any kind of one title that really gathers together the fandom the way that Lore Olympus did. We are going to start seeing some uses of generative tools. I use this picture because it was a very popular webtoon in Korea. And then people start to realize, hey, that's a Marvel character in the background of one of these episodes. That looks like maybe that doesn't belong there. And it was never confirmed whether or not it was used. It was generated from an AI tool or anything like that. But it is happening. And because of ballooning costs, like, again, not every studio, not every creator can handle $20,000 an episode. Instances of studios or creators using generative tools is probably going to go into increase. And the second part and the third part, very, very important, merchandising. Koreans are very bad at this, especially when it comes to webtoons, because that industry doesn't quite exist in Korea. So when you look at overseas and you look at Disney, the Disney playbook is really what a lot of people talk about. In Korea, we look at the Disney playbook and we go, that works because that's Disney. It really doesn't come into people's minds that this will work because we have something that maybe rivals that in certain cases. So even with Solo Leveling, if you look at Crunchyroll's website, Crunchyroll handles the anime adaptation of Solo Leveling, you will find maybe like 10 items, and that's it. It's kind of depressing, but I do see that Red Ice and other companies like them are really starting to go, okay, this is what we need to do in the future. And finally, I do think we're going to see a resurgence of independent creatives and a pushback on the studio system, which does mean that there's going to be a lot more opportunities for overseas creators, overseas studios, more not as polished, definitely not in the $20,000, $30,000 per episode range production costs episode or webtoons. I think we're going to start seeing kind of the resurgence of indie products come back in. And yeah, that's me. This is some of my contact info if you guys are interested. I'm sorry if I took too long. I think I took a little bit of a long way to get here, but yeah, the webtoon industry, it's very much teenage years right about now. We're not really in the infancy anymore. I will say that the conversations I have with a lot of people here and abroad are very, very, I don't know, very, very somewhat cognizant of what we're doing now. But there was a time period, I will say, that we thought we were in the infancy. We're still in the growing stages. Right now, it's more growing pains, perhaps. But there's a lot to be done here, especially when we're looking at the anime and video game industries and the way that they work. And I'm very, very interested to hear what comes next with Anastasia, because that's definitely one area that a lot of people in the webtoon industry are looking at to try and see, okay, where do we go next from here?
And you have the QR code as well if you want to just scan it. Okay. Okay, so we might get disconnected if my payment goes through very quickly. Sorry about that. I didn't expect to. And